Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display. So today we're going to do something that we haven't done in a little while. So over here I have something that might be familiar to you, perhaps not. We have a Bandai model kit, this time for the Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett. And this time I'm not going to be making him into Boba Fett, I'm actually going to turn him into JODO KAST. So if you don't know who JODO KAST is, essentially he is a Legends character, meaning that Disney does not acknowledge his existence, where he showed up in a comic book run. I'm not sure how long it lasted for him, but basically he's notoriously one of the worst bounty hunters who's ever lived, probably up there with Greedo. And he was effectively a Boba Fett impersonator after the events of Return of the Jedi, when Boba was presumed dead, which of course he wasn't. JODO KAST pretty much got his own Mandalorian armor and attempted to imitate Boba Fett to sort of bank off of his legacy. But obviously Boba Fett didn't like that. He wasn't too keen on someone banking off of his story as well as his father's story. So he hunted down JODO KAST and had him explode and die. So anyways, I have this model kit here, and we're pretty much just going to do a customizer's journal. I'm not totally sure how I'm going to go about it. Pretty much all I have is the basic necessities I have in order to produce this JODO KAST. So I have the model kit. I also purchased some yellow paint spray because that's pretty much what distinguishes JODO KAST from Boba Fett. Usually the red accents are instead yellow instead on JODO, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And I'm also thinking I'm going to repaint the body glove so it's a little bit darker, because I'm going to be using some references, and one of them is going to be some action figures that were released in the 2000s of JODO KAST, or it might have been like early 2010s, not too sure. But basically on those figures, the body glove is a little bit darker, help to vary him a little bit from Boba Fett. So that's just going to be an extra little thing I'll do, as opposed to just doing the yellow parts and that's it, just to give him a little bit more. And beyond that, I might just do some light weathering with some silver. Probably not too much, because in my mind, he's a guy who just got the armor, just repainted it, and he hasn't had a lot of time to build in a whole lot of story into the armor yet. It's still very clean, right off his workshop, right before Boba Fett hunts him down and puts him in the ground, right? So anyhow, let's go ahead and unstrap this model kit, and let's just see what we have. For those of you who have never seen a kit like this before, this will be an interesting little process for you. So let's begin. So here are all the polybags that we have with this kit. It's a kit that I'm actually familiar with. It's one of the very first ones that I have ever built, and I in fact repainted it so it would be Boba Fett as he appeared in the infamous holiday special, if you know anything about that. But here we are. It's a brand new kit. Nothing's done to it yet. This is just the kit in its vanilla form. So basically what I'm going to do is go through each sprue very carefully, and using my reference images, I'm going to pull out any pieces that I feel like need to be repainted in order for the kit to look more like JODO KAST and less like Boba Fett, which will be tough to do because their armors are very similar. Like, straight away, I think the most obvious one here is we have some yellow over here, which you could leave as is, but there are some other pieces here which are not yellow by default that do need to be repainted, so I'm going to repaint these anyway so they're all the exact same tone. Looks like he hit them up with the exact same hue of yellow, I suppose. So we're going to be painting that up, and then looking through these, we should also have hit Boba Fett's gauntlets, which are right there, done in green. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to make those yellow as well to match the source material. And over here we have part of his visor, if I can go ahead and angle that up. Right over there. So that's going to need to be yellow as well. That'll make him a lot more distinct from our usual Boba Fett armor. So I'm going to go ahead, take my time, take out the pieces that we need, and not only that, but remove pieces we don't need. Like, I'm not sure if JODO KAST also had that classic Boba Fett cape going over his jetpack or not. So that's something I might be able to leave out. So there's going to be a lot of fodder that comes out of this kit as well. Okay, before I start the spraying process, I first wanted to show off some of the pieces I will be spraying and some of the pieces I won't be spraying, and some are sort of a special case, so let's start with that. In this little bag here, I've got some pieces that I actually would like to be silver. That might not be totally accurate to JODO KAST, but they're just pieces I feel like would be better if they were silver, like little rockets, missiles, stuff like that. So I'm going to be doing that by hand with a marker pen, so I'm going to be doing that off to the side. I feel like if I sprayed them, it would be hard to plug them into the kit afterwards, so I'll be putting those aside. And then over here, here are some sprues that we will not be spraying whatsoever, so that way the joints are preserved. For example, we have these PVC parts, excuse me, PCF parts over here that are a little bit more rubbery, more flexy, as you can see like that. And this is what's going to allow the kit to move. And I don't want to hit that with much spray until after I build up the main body, then paint it with a darker gray, and then I can spray it with like a dull coat to keep everything in place. Then over here, this is just a good example of a sprue that had absolutely no pieces whatsoever that need to be colored at all, at least until I go ahead about the body glove and do that manually. And then lastly, here are the pieces I was talking about, which is not much, but these are the pieces that will sell the illusion that this is indeed JODO KAST. So the first thing that I found here are these Wookiee braids over here, because yes, Boba Fett did indeed hunt Wookiees, but we have these over here. On that action figure, they actually looked white, so I'm going to go ahead and spray those with white because I just happen to have a can that has that color. And then over here, everything is going to be done in a matte yellow spray. Over here, all my paints that I'm currently using are Krylon, by the way, and these have worked pretty well in the past, so I'm going to give that another shot and see how it goes. But anyhow, let's go ahead and see what the setup looks like. Alright, now this setup might be familiar to some. Here we have my giant cardboard box, which is actually a lot bigger than it was before, in my bathroom, which I do not recommend. Don't spray things inside. I just happen to have a lot of real estate here, and I also have this big old honkin' gas breathing mask, whatever, so, and I got the ventilation going on, so don't spray things inside. It's not going to be pretty for your lungs, but I've got the right equipment, so I'll be fine with that. But if you don't have those things, then be sure to bring it out, and feel free to bring out a cardboard box too if you like. Probably one of the easiest ways to just bring your sprues outside. And speaking of that, another thing that I want to mention for those of you who don't know that I do this already is what I like to do is take the sprues that I want to spray up and then use just basic scotch tape and get a piece of cardboard and tape it down, so that way after I spray on a layer I can very easily go in and turn everything around without them shuffling all over the place. So that just gives them a little bit more security. Same thing over here. These are the ones I'm doing in white, whereas those ones are going to be done in yellow. Of course, we'll do them separately. I'll rotate them outwards as I need to. These are the Wookiee braids, and something that I did interestingly here, which I haven't done before, is I do need to paint both sides. So one thing that I'll wind up doing is I'm going to spray the side over first with my white, and then the cool thing is the way that I got it taped down, that'll allow me to sort of flip it around midway through so that way I can hit the other side as well. So I'm probably going to hit this side first, then I'm going to hit those guys with some yellow, and then rotate them around and hit them again. Now I'll return these sprues, and then they should be a little bit more on the dry side. I can flip them, and I can spray them again. So that should work out pretty well. And this is going to be very interesting because the lighter the color, usually the harder it is to get it applied, whether it be by acrylics or by spray. And in this case, I'm using yellow and white, and those are some of the lightest colors there are. So it's going to be interesting to see how those pan out. But anyhow, that's pretty much all I got to say. So let me go ahead, get my mask on, and then we'll get started. I totally forgot that I have gloves. Give me a minute. That'll be just about it for now. I'm going to let these guys dry for a while. Sorry about any weird camera angles. It's just very hard to film while spraying properly at the same time. I think it went in a little bit too close there. I should have been at a further distance, but regardless, everything got painted up pretty well. Although you can see if you zoom in here a little bit, some of the green is still showing up, so I'm going to let that dry overnight. It is actually almost 2 a.m. and I'm doing this, so I'm going to wait till the morning, come back, I'm going to spray them again. I'm not going to film that, you get the gist by this point. And then, yeah, we'll just see how it goes, and we'll see what the next steps are, so I'll see you in the morning. Alright, now it is morning, and I just gave all the pieces that we painted together a second coat, so those are drying over there. They're not perfect, we'll talk about that when we get there in the final assembly, but the next thing I wanted to show you is that I will be using these paint pens, which I've shown off before, but they're very good, very affordable, you can get them on Amazon, and I find that they're very good for painting on more tricky colors like silver and gold, and you can use these on very small pieces or very large pieces. They're just very adaptable to whatever situation you're looking at. So I'm going to paint up a few pieces here just to show you. So here we have the concussion missile, which you could see is still kind of part of the spruce. That'll allow me to hold on to the piece without actually touching it, which is very useful. Then we got the pen here, so got to give it a good shake. Because it's alcohol based, it leaks a little bit, so we want to be sure everything's nice and blended up. And then we just need to go over it like so. You can see immediately it's picking up on the silver and it looks fantastic. If you want, you can also go back in and give it a second coat if you're worried about anything scratching off. And I've used these pens before and I've never really had that issue, so in this case I think we should be fine. And then also, if you want, when you clip these out, you'd also check for the little notches where it's attached to the sprue, and you can go paint it around again. And you don't need to paint these pieces 100%. In fact, you probably don't want to, because you also have these pins right here where it's going to slot into the actual figure itself. And if you paint up too much, I might have a tough time actually slotting in the way that it's supposed to. So there we go. So we got that piece all done. Put it aside, come back to it. Then we can come over here to what looks like the rangefinder. Now this is in black, so might need a few coats, but we'll do the exact same thing over here. Oh, it's actually coming out pretty good. So let's go ahead and do that. That's how you can tell that this is an older model kit, because things that are supposed to be in silver are not molded in silver, so they cut a few corners when they started doing these kits. I think Boba Fett was one of the first ones that they actually did, and it's one of the easiest to find from what I can tell. In fact, I got this one for $12 off of Amazon, and I was getting Prey Vizsla at the same time, so I could get free shipping, I figured I'll throw in a kit and see what I could do with it. So here we are, doing a little tutorial together, or a customizer's journal, whatever you want to call it. So let's see. Again, I'm not going to paint that peg right over there because that's where it attaches to the main figure. I don't want that to get too tight or anything. So just going to do that antenna right there. Gets a little bit edgy towards the actual range finding portion, so just be sure to get in all the crevices. I can more closely inspect it when I'm off camera and then do a better job at it, but these paints are very good. I've used it before in Black Series figures, and they've come out very beautifully. They're very good for buckles, buttons, you know, holster rivets, or whatever it is that you have. But yeah, there are two pieces for you, and I got a few more to go through over here, as you can see. Like, I've got these sidings from the helmet. I should have kept some of the spruce, that way I'd have something to hold on to, but I'll figure that out. Probably just hold on to the peg as I do it. I also got some more pieces for gauntlets right there. I got these little rocket pins for the kneecaps, which I do not like putting in. I've installed these twice before on that Empire Strikes Back kit I did years ago, and then also on the Book of Boba Fett version of him that I did, and they're very dicey to push in. I might not put them in at all. I don't know, maybe JODO KAST just doesn't have them, so that would just add to the story a little bit. And then you got another sighting there. And then this is a little part for the back of the jetpack, so I'll go color those in too. But then, yeah, just keep going around, coloring them up with the marker here, and then just be sure that they're nice and pretty in silver. Once everything's dried up, then we can clip them out, then plug them into the kit later. So that should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then after this, I'll probably build up the main body, and then we'll see what we need to do from there. Alright, now as you can see here, I've built up pretty much everything except putting the armor on the main body, so now I can paint this up in a darker body glove color. So over here I have all my acrylics ready to go. We're just going to make a pretty basic gray and just slather everything on. One thing I recommend you do is before you go ahead and just paint the whole thing up, is you be sure that you paint the inside of the joints, like right over here, so you be sure that nothing is missed, so when it articulates, that doesn't look like there's a break in the color or anything like that. So I'm going to paint him up, then I'm going to spray him so that way all the paint stays intact. Then afterwards, I'm going to put in all the armor bits I want to get onto the figure. So as you can see, I've actually already built up the Boba Fett, excuse me, the JODO Kast helmet, and now it's got the yellow visor right there. Now, I didn't do a great job on the yellow. I really had to cake it on. I'm not sure if it's because it was the paint or simply on the fact that it was yellow. And again, yellow is very hard to apply in any paint medium. So that's just something I'm going to have to test a little bit out. Maybe troubleshoot with some water. Maybe it'll help it to spread over a little bit better. It's just it can tend to be a little bit of a fingerprint magnet. So I'm not sure if you can see here. Got a little bit grimy, but it's not too bad. I mean, from a distance, and once it dries off a little bit more, it should be better off. But yeah, I'm gonna go paint that up, and we'll see how we do. Okay, so here we are back in the spray room, and as you can see, I've gotten the body glove and also some other little parts in order to paint into a darker gray, as we see right here. And then I also did the hands, some pouches, and also some of the shoulder pads, so those will all be in tandem with each other. And I'm going to go ahead and use this sealer over here, which I've used before on a Boba Fett model kit that we did in the past together, and it gave it almost this fabric-y, dusty looking feel, so I'm hoping it does the same thing here to give it a little bit more realism, especially since I already scored the armor a little bit, gave it a little bit of silver. So hopefully that'll do the same thing over here where it gives it a more lived-in feel, and it'll look pretty nice, so let's give that a shot.
Never mind, it ran out. Let's see. Maybe this one will have something left in it? Let's see, we got test stores this time. Alright, let's give this a shot. Alright, there we go.
So spraying on that lacquer didn't go quite as expected. One of my cans was dead, but I still had one more that I was able to do it with, so while that dries up, I'm going to go ahead and show you a few quick pieces of the armor. So for example, here's the helmet once again, and I gave it a little bit of scoring, just some very light scratches. Again, this is brand new, repainted armor, so I'm not going to give it too much. Kind of similar to the Book of Boba Fett look for Boba Fett, but of course in this case we have a total doppelganger who's trying to imitate him. So you can do a little bit of scratches, but you can also do a little bit of this, almost like it's singed or it's scraped up against something here on the kneecap. And I did that all with, again, that marker pen that paint pen, that we were using before. So you could just kind of just dab it on there or give it a little bit of slashing. It gives it some very light weather work, and I think it does a pretty nice job. Looks like it kind of came out of the toy factory too, which I like a lot. I also went ahead and I built up the carbine blaster. Looks really nice. I did a little bit of that detail work on there. Not going too crazy. Did a little bit of the scratching work up here as well. Not as easy to see, but then again, I didn't do that much on purpose. So that's about it for all the paint that I plan to do. So we just need to wait for the main figure to dry up. They could build everything together, and we'll just see what we have. And here we are with JODO Kast fresh off my workbench, and he is pretty much complete. He actually turned out a lot better than I thought he'd be. I thought he wouldn't be varied enough to look different from Boba Fett, but there were enough things that I punched in there that makes him a little bit more his own. You can see as he moved from top to bottom, I did a little bit of scoring and a little bit of weathering, but I kept it as light as I could, again, to suggest that it's pretty brand new armor. He hasn't done a whole ton of bounties yet, maybe he's still in training in order to intimidate Boba Fett, the badass that he is. I also got him with his carbine rifle over there. I got the two pouches over here as well, which do hinder articulation a little bit, but that's okay. This is more meant to be a display piece. You also got the head sculpt up here, which looks absolutely phenomenal. And these are the only two decals I use, the two little black bits over here on the cheeks of the helmet, if I may call it that. But if you go ahead and turn him around as well, you also have the jetpack, also with some light weathering. I didn't do a whole ton of paint just because I didn't feel like it would be very visible, so why go that far? Even then, I still did those little buckles over there. But Yeah, everything here came out pretty fantastic. Again, the yellow is a little bit on the gummy side, but that's just something I'll have to get used to. But other than that, I'm very pleased. And as the last thing that we can do, I also have the Star Wars The Black Series Boba Fett from Return of the Jedi. That you can see the differences here. I really like how we have his doppelganger, who's a lot cleaner. Then we have actual Boba Fett looking like he just crawled out of the Sarlacc, looking really cool. And he is also a little bit repainted. I gave him a little bit of soot in the body glove, a little bit of extra weathering on the armor, just to give him a little bit more of that damaged look to him, as he probably should have. But that's pretty much the conclusion of this customizer's journal. I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, I know it was a little bit lengthy, but that's pretty much what these are all about. Pretty much just working through it, going through the problems and stuff like that. And I hope you guys learned a few things on the way. And if you do use any of the tips that I gave to you, then please let me know in the comments what you've built. I'd be very interested to know what characters that you've created using some of my methods, or maybe you have a few tips of your own in order for me to improve my own methods as well. So that's pretty much all. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, then please, as per usual, be sure to
Like, comment,
Ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals.
and subscribe.
This is the editor speaking, humbly reminding you to support the pod Patreon in the description to guarantee new content every single week.
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.